Yeah, sometimes you just feeling it, you know what I'm saying? You just feeling it. And I want to feel this way forever. Yeah, check it out. Okay, so welcome everybody. This is the second episode of In a Good Way podcast. Today I have a special guest, a good friend of mine, Amanda. I'll let Amanda introduce herself right now, but you know, me and Amanda met in ceremony, and to me, that's always, it kind of gives you a closer bond. Anyone you go to ceremony with, and which we went many times. It's just like in a spiritual way, it really, connects you to people. So, what Amanda's specialty is, she does hair. And so I've never really heard anybody speak about hair in the way, or doing hair in the way that she does, right? There's plenty of hairstylists, and, just taking into account. So real quick, and then I'll let her, I know this is going long, but there's a long introduction, but just for people to grasp the concept or understand the perspective, how important not only hair but your head is. It's been around in cultures like all throughout history, right? Even a culture like before we had contact here, right? Like in Turtle Island, what is now known as the Americas. Even in biblical times, there's a story of Samson who, the power came from his hair, and once Delilah cut his hair, that's how they were able to bind him, and overcome him. Here, Native people have always known how important the hair is, and you're not supposed to let anyone other than your mom or significant other, or maybe someone really close to you, touch your hair. And so, Amanda, she does hair in that spiritual way. And so I wanted her to, I guess, first share how you got started as a hairstylist. And before that, let's just, you can introduce yourself, and then we'll go into that.
Yeah, thank you, Tlasakamati Omar, for having me on. My name is Amanda Monique Clausen. I am daughter of Veronica Clausen and Jonathan Clausen, granddaughter of Angelina Teresa Moreno and Jean Allen Clausen, and as well as Rosa Avalos and Javier Avalos. I am also a part of Calpoli Tio Caliolin under Maestra Cici, Maestro Paula, and Maestro Di Santi. And so I've been walking that path more recently since September, officially in an apprenticeship for Curanderismo. So and I've been a licensed cosmetologist since 2009. And really, before knowing that it was curanderismo or, what it was that I was doing, it was just like looking at my clientele, the people that my community, what they needed. And then I started to just like research those things, and then also like having that intuition of what I could personally provide to them. And then now deepening that into connecting with my ancestral medicina. So yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. And so how did you get started? Like, what made you want to do hair? Like was it because a family member did it, or what? Just one day you woke up and you're like, I'm gonna do hair?
No, actually, well, when I was in high school, I played softball, and they had like a SPROC program, after school program for hair, but I felt like I didn't have enough like push in that direction. And because my family had always done sports since we were younger, it was just like, this is what's routine. So I'm just going to stay in softball. But I had always known I was like curious about doing hair. My homegirl, she went to that program and she highlighted my hair as a junior. And like my senior year, my brother helped me cut my hair. I was like, cut the back, I can't get it. So like he helped me cut the back. And then I went to school for like a couple of, I don't even know, like a couple of days. I went to college after I graduated. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to play softball. And I knew I wanted to do hair. I actually got looked at a college, but at that college, they didn't have like a cosmetology program. So I was like, I don't think I want to play here. So yeah, I realized college wasn't for me. And I thought, you know what, I want to do hair because I really like working with people and I really like to make people feel good or participate in helping them feel good about themselves. And how creative hair was. So I had decided to do hair and I went to school full time and learned a lot about myself in that time and allowed it to just teach me and lead me to where I am today.
And so around, I would just to get like a time frame, like what year was that when you started doing hair? In
Oh, so I mean, I graduated high school in 2005 and I've been licensed since 2009. So in between that time, I was just like, so 2008, I was in school. So for 3 years, I was just kind of like working little jobs and trying to figure out what I wanted to do.
okay, and then at what point did you make it more into a spiritual thing? Like when did you
Um,
fall into
so I
that?
was doing hair for a long time. I think it was all spiritual because we're spiritual beings, right? And so it was the personal journey that led me into everything else. And since I was licensed, I really wasn't cutting a lot of hair. I worked like corporation jobs.
Mm.
And so I worked like at JC Penney's and they have a salon in there. And I was
Oh,
just
wow.
like watching people.
That's
I would just watch and I would study different stylists because I was a little bit intimidated and that had to do with like my own healing, like being intimidated and a lot of second guessing and like, am I good enough to do this haircut? Or like, what if I mess up or all those things? So all of that is spiritual, right? Because you have to build yourself up and you have to say, okay, I can practice these things. I can have an understanding and a connection. And so it was all in that way. And then I decided I was working at another corporate job. So I went from there to like a supercuts type spot. It was called like the hair cutters. I don't know if I can say that on here, but
yeah.
I went over there and some stuff was happening that really wasn't pleasant. And I had it up to here and I said, you know what, I'm just quitting. Like I'm not like a big like quitter, but it was just like I needed to resign. I needed to leave that vibration of corporate salon life where I felt like there was a lot of like you can only wear this color. There's so
Oh,
many rules. The client's always right. Like, you know, it was just more about like finances and more about like how to please your client but not teach them enough for them to do it. It's all about them coming back. How do you retain with like things you don't teach them? And so I really didn't like that, and I knew I had always wanted to do barbering. That's what I really wanted to do, but because my mother is paying for half of my school, she was like, no, if you're going to do hair, you need to do the whole thing. You need to go to cosmetology. So when I quit that salon, I was like, I'm going to do a crossover. I
mm,
trusted myself and I went to the crossover. And this was about the time I was about to start going to Sweat. This
okay.
is almost about the time I was going to meet you because I had just met Priscilla, our friend Priscilla, Dr. Priscilla Ortiz. Shout out to her. Yeah, I had met her and I had got invited to go to Sweat. And I think it was around that time, just again, I think it's a very personal journey. And that's what helped me to see that there was more than just the hair cutting. So as I went to decide I wanted to go to barbering school, that was a whole other experience in itself where I ended up doing the crossover program for like one day.
Oh, wow.
And because spirit led me out of there, you know,
Mm.
like spirit led me into the barbershop that I worked at for 4.5 years after that one day. And so all of it is spiritual once again. And so, yeah, I worked there for 4.5 years in that barbershop, Empire's Barbershop. Um, um, and it was there that I realized that people were dealing with a large amount of stress, particularly my people, brown people, right? Brown and black people, our communities, and people um, since I was working in the barbershop, it was a lot of folks stopping on their way home, particularly again, cis men of color. And I thought about my father and I thought about how I grew up, and, you know, we live in the Inland Empire and a lot of people are traveling from Los Angeles.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so you travel an hour and a half to work 8.5 hours just to sit in traffic 2 hours, and you're carrying all of that fight or flight, you know, all of the thoughts. And it was just like, damn, like, what can I do? And so that's where I started with it, was like, how can I help reduce stress? So I started to look up like what the stress rate was in, I don't remember what year I was doing my studying, so I don't remember. I turned 29. And anyway, so I saw that that was the leading causes of all of our people's illnesses and disease was heart attacks, strokes, high blood pressure, you know, all of these things that have a chain reaction to our families, to ourselves, to the way that we move throughout this, you know, land. And so I started with just doing hot towels. I started doing things like just who I was, putting, you know, my prayers when I come in, checking myself, having plants at my station, and then just like doing the hot towels and doing like mini massages, like little temple massage. And again, I thought about like my father, what that chain reaction was. Like children don't know that you know, their parents just got off of work and they had a stressful day. They just are excited to see you. And you know, it could be really, I don't want to say damaging, but it can really leave an effect on a child when they're very excited to see their heroes, their people they love, that they look up to. And it's just like, give me 5 minutes, give me 5 minutes. And, or like, you know, I just got, like, you can see the unpresentness because they're still trying to unwind. And so there was a bridge that I could provide a service to before people went home. A lot of them came to the barbershop. And so if I could help relax them before they went home, they could be better selves, they could be better partners, better parents, better siblings, you know, whatever that looks like, better employees or self-employed, have clarity to go about, you know, their day in a good way. So yeah, that's how it happened.
No, but that's really deep right now. Like, wow, like that really hit me like a lot. Like, that, like the stress and especially how you tied it into children. You know, when a parent gets home, like my dad always worked 2 jobs. So it was like, I always have felt like he was like the greatest dad as far as like, you know, great provider, great everything. But, you know, I always know like I raised myself in a lot of ways because I didn't really get taught. I kind of had to learn by myself because that, you know, like he would get home real quick, change, go to the next job, or in between take naps and all that. And it was kind of that, like everything was very like blunt, right? No time to, oh, like how, you know, you see like, oh, you know, son this or that or time out or nothing like that. Everything was very like, boom, 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 you know? But I got it as I grew older. And everything you just said right now, I don't think a lot of people realize that and how deep it is that they could stop and unwind. And, I mean, that's amazing. And actually, right before New Year, I had gone to see some friends that, you know, I hadn't seen in a while. And, you know, one of my friends, you know, she does hair and she's, you know, she's, you know, we went to high school together and she does hair and she's, you know, been doing it for a long time. She's really successful at it. But she was talking about how, you know, she has this client that always has this negative energy. And it's like, you know, they pay good and everything, but that doesn't even matter because this client always has just all this negative energy. But, you know, and I thought of you and I mentioned how you do, you know, hair in a very spiritual way. So I'm definitely going to send her this, you know, interview and podcast. Yeah. So, you know, she could hear everything that you're saying and explaining of the way you do it. But, you know, and I told her that how, yeah, like I admire what you guys do because you know, even me working since I became more, I guess, I don't know if I would call myself a healer, but I guess in a way, yes, right? Like a lot of people over the years, there was a time when a lot of people would call me. And now I realize that I was taking all their energy, right? And and one of the hardest things for me to learn was how to release that energy. But you guys do this as a profession. You know what I mean? You sit there day after day and you take on that energy. And even, you know, just how you learn to release that. And I guess, you know, if you want to tie that in more to the, you know, the way you do hair in a ceremonial way. I mean, aside from, you know, I know you said like the massaging and all that, which makes perfect sense. But even, you know, as much as you could, like, you know, I know a lot of it is personal, like when you do have the ceremony. So just whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah.
And how you release that energy too, because I know, yeah, like that's very admirable that you guys are able to do that.
Yeah. I think that's a great question. Give me 1 second, my door open with the
Oh.
wind. I'm just gonna place a book here. Okay. So yeah, I think a lot of it is our own personal intention with ourselves. Like I don't say I take people's stuff on. Like I'm not gonna claim your stuff. Like, and I mean that with all the respect and the love in the world. Like I feel like my job is to hear them and to allow them to have a soundboard to hear themselves. A
Mm.
lot of us haven't been taught these things. We think it's like that's really deep and it sounds really simple. But we have to remember where our families come from and the things that we've experienced where there wasn't time to like pamper. And so some people really, can't correlate relaxation in their everyday life. And it's just like, how can we just remind them of that? And so my space is I have a variety of things that I do. I think like it starts with our day, like I give thanks when I wake up, but when my feet hit the floor, I give thanks to Creator, I give thanks to my ancestors. I give thanks to the sun, I give thanks, I go through. And so when I get to my personal space, and your walk to stylists and barbers, it doesn't have to look exactly like mine. We all come from various different backgrounds and we all have our own medicine. And so if yours is like, I go into my space and I clap in all the corners and I sing, that is energy, that is cleansing. And I do all of those things, right? But we think of it, but it's just so simple. You can go and like have plants everywhere. I have plants in my space. So I have, when people come for ceremonies, like all my relations, like what's here, what are we working with? Like I have the plants in there, the plant relatives, and I give thanks for them when I water them. I give thanks for their presence, for the beauty, for the energy they hold, taking on, they take on things. That's why they tell us to go outside and to be in nature, is because it reduces so much stress just from looking at the beauty that Creator has made. And so I feel like that's something that I do, is like being mindful of our space, what makes us feel good, what makes us feel safe, what makes us feel comfortable, and always remembering to be grounded. Like a lot of the times we're not outside or outdoors or connected to ourselves. What does leave us susceptible to other people's energy is because now we do take on things because we haven't, there's so many different ways of going about it. And again, it depends on somebody's particular practice. You can work with different jewelry, different colors, protection, prayer. Thank you, Creator, as I walk through these doors and offer my work in a good way. Keep me grounded and keep me in a good space to be able to be present for whoever comes through here. Or it just depends. Every time is different. I feel like but I get limpias, I get cleanses, but that, even if that doesn't have to do with hair, that has to do with just like spiritual hygiene, right? Like that's going on a walk. That's why I feel like a lot of what I teach is about self-accountability and about our intention with ourselves, because that's what's going to trickle into all of our work. If we are working on so many different clients, what are we doing for ourselves like we offer them, so we can come back more present? Because it is a responsibility, the work that stylists, barbers, estheticians, makeup artists, manicurists, massage therapists, anybody in service, you're so close to people. And we have our auric field. There's like 3 levels, I think. There's a lot to learn. And when we think about like our personal space, and we think 6 feet apart, right? Like that's like the time, but also like our aura space, right? Like I need you kind of this way because this is my field here, and that feels good. We're passing, now we're into each other's, right? And so like me, I work with oils, I make oils. This is I work with plant medicine, I work with prayer is like the main thing, and intention. If something feels heavy, I know when to light the fire for somebody who may not even have came for the things that I offer along. Like with curanderismo, I offer them what they need, and that could just be a conversation, and that can be you know, like I said, the fire or something else. But if I feel heavy, you know, simple as going to wash my hands. I'm cutting this energy. Thank you to the sacred water. Like we work with water, cleanse our hands. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. I would say listen to what feels best for you, because it could be just tapping your hand. You know, it could be I'm just snapping this and dusting it off. And you can feel the difference in all of those things. It could be I just sweep. And there are some things you can go deeper in, but that just depends on what your beliefs are and your practices are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and no, and thank you for sharing that. And also right now, like when you mentioned about like your aura and all that, and it made me think of your, like the chakras as well, and like your crown, and the fact that you hold yourself accountable when you work with people, so not to give them part of your, like if you have, whether you want to call it bad vibes or you've been
Mm-hmm.
dealing with something negative,
Mm-hmm.
you want to cleanse yourself before you even deal with them. And it made me think of, like the crown. And I've always loved the name, like keep your crown right is,
Mm-hmm.
what you've called your, services or,
Yeah.
and so, it made me think of like the crown chakra, which is what connects you, they say, to the angelic realm, the divine, God source.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, like people don't think, or I don't know if they do, if they think about how important, your head space is, not just your hair, but even just this whole area.
Mm-hmm.
It actually made me think of a funny story. Like I never realized it, like when I was, younger, like right after high school, I was still out there partying and everything. And, I guess sometimes, people get drunk, they get friendly, they'll rub your head or something. If they're friends, you never really took it seriously. You know what I mean? You kind of just like, all right, whatever, Or if, someone that you're attracted to, they come, they rub your head, and you're like, all right, cool, that kind of stuff. But I remember once, we were like amongst friends really, but, someone like, they were an acquaintance, but not like a really good friend, but they touched my head. And this friend, it was weird. I felt like, because I had already seen that at that point in my life, like things that I felt were kind of like divinely, I don't know, orchestrated or guided or something. But it was almost like something spoke through this friend. Here's my friend all drunk or whatever, but I guess he seen someone touch my head, and they were like, hey man, don't ever let no one touch your head. Like, did that guy just touch you? Don't let him touch your head. Like, you wanted to fight this guy for touching my head. And I was just like, what? Like, but it made me think, like, this person saw me with that much respect that they thought someone didn't have the right to touch my head.
Mm-hmm.
He saw it before I even did. You know what I mean? Like, wow. Like, and from that moment on, I did look at it differently. Like, oh, yeah, like someone shouldn't touch my head.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, I learned everything about, how important, even your hair is to Native people. And it even made me think of, it was funny, not funny, because it was, a tragic everything about it. But, when the Iraqi, when they invaded Iraq, right? They toppled Saddam Hussein's statue. And I never forgot that when they toppled the statue, the people that, didn't like him, they took off their chanclas or sandals, however you call it, and they were hitting the top of his head with the bottom of their sandals, as if that was the worst disrespect they could give to him. Imagine, so your head, like taking the bottom of your shoe and hitting someone on the head. So even this culture, they say Iraq is where the Garden of Eden was. Some people say that, some people say it was in other places, but that's, that's a civilization that's been around far longer than this modern stuff that, they call the US or any, a lot of modern cultures, right? So they already had that, that's probably been passed from generation to generation, how important your head is, that could be like the worst insult, right? To take the bottom of your shoe and hit someone on the top of the head. So, it's just a lot of things I've learned about, how important it is, your headspace, your crown, not to let anyone just put their hands on it, you know what I mean? And probably even that. So like, even that in that setting where, everyone's drunk and, you just don't know what kind of energy they're carrying. So for them to just put it on your head, it doesn't, it's not, I guess it's good to protect yourself. And like how I said, my friend made me see that for some reason they saw me with enough respect. And then before I even did, to be like, yeah, no one has the right to touch, your head. It's a divine thing in cultures all across the world, right? So yeah. And I mean, I don't know what else to ask as far as you know, I wanted to talk more about like the hair, but you pretty much shared it. I do want to leave your contact info in case anyone wants to have the hair
Sure.
done in a ceremonial way. I wish we could show video, but you know, I don't have any video unless you
Yeah.
share, you
I
know.
don't oh, actually somebody on my Instagram, somebody did a time lapse. I didn't have anything really like photographed or video for a while,
Okay.
because I just felt like it was something that was sacred that I was offering, and still learning to protect and learning to honor and learning to learn what I was doing and what I was needed and called to do. But on my page, there are some photographs. I was blessed to be able to have some recent photographs taken. I did a retreat last year, a California retreat, with Maestra Sisi for Kalpulitio Kaliolin. And I was asked and offered the opportunity to present, with that group of people, a hair ceremony. So there was some photographs taken, and they're on my Instagram. But you know, yeah, I specialize too in curly cuts. I do barbering as well, like I mentioned. So there's a lot around curly hair too, and just hair in general. And like you said about that story, you know, before closing out, as you know, that was the first thing that was taken during slavery, colonization, the Holocaust. If you go to prison, if you go into the military, and it's to create a submissiveness. It's to take identity. It's to, you know, like just strip you of your strength and power, because it is so significant, and it is our highest connection to Creator in many, many, many different cultures. And it's interesting that we haven't really known that in the West, right? But if we go back to our ancestral roots, you'll find that there's many, many sayings and many ways, you know, like you probably hear, you know, my parents didn't speak Spanish to me, so what I know is what I know. But like una buena mano or un buen mano or something, like it means the good hand. So it's like, oh, they have a good hand. And like, you know, I know in certain cultures are like, don't let too many hands in your hair, like don't let more than one person touch your hair, or don't let your hair get into the wrong hands. Or we hear the saying like, de cabeza un mundo, like every head is a universe or like a world. And so there's like, just so like, that's why every person you work on, it's so important, because it's a world of its own, and it's just going throughout all these worlds and experiences. So yeah, if you are interested in learning more, I do teach different classes. I am working on a project for education. I go out to different barbering schools and salons, and um, cosmetology programs as well, and just teaching about these things in more in depth, in education around like the scientific portion of it, to give a breakdown, because some people aren't on the same frequency of you know, the spiritual, right, or haven't tapped into that. But science and spiritual, they're kind of the same, just give a breakdown differently. Yeah. And so I think giving people just the scientific name to what we're talking about spiritually, they might learn that way. So yeah, if you're interested in that, you can find me on Instagram at Keep Your Crown Right, or you can visit me at keepyourcrownright.com.
Thank you. And just real quick, when you said that, it reminded me of, I believe, I don't know if it was in ceremony or, you know, in, you know, how we would do, like, you know, well, I know someone said it, right? And it was like how, like somehow, it's funny, Native people always thought of the hair as something sacred, you know? And like you said, don't let your hair fall into the wrong hands. And I remember them saying, there was an elder, I don't remember who exactly told me, but it was like, think about it now. They get everything from your hair, your whole DNA, your this, your that. That's how much knowledge like your hair has. And, you know, like somehow they knew that the hair was sacred, but now fast forward to now where they could just tell everything about you from your hair, you know, so it shows that without even, you know, like all the things that indigenous people or, you know, our ancestors knew, that they didn't really need to, you know, modern science to tell them this and that.
Right.
Like,
right.
They had it already. You know?
Well, we were, yeah, and because we were scientists before there was a name for scientists, right? Like we were astrologers, we were, you know, all the things. You know, like before there was a name to it, it was just something that we knew and connected with in our connection to the land in that way, you know. And so yeah, cutting it is like I have my hair short now, and maybe some people are like, why is her hair so short if she knows all this stuff? Because there's different ways that we work with it, right? And we see it in different cultures all over, whether it's like Buddhist monk who might shave all their hair off, or you know, people who grow it long and only cut it for ceremony, or to honor a relative that has passed. And I honored mine by cutting it. You know, it had been long for 10 years, and I just recently cut it after a very big trip that I had taken, and letting parts of myself die in the north. And so I cut my hair in as I entered the north, and like grieved a lot of those things, you know, and now letting my hair come back, and the goal is to grow it long. It's just sometimes we go through those cleansing processes in that way. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to ask you something else, but I don't want to keep you too long.
It's fine. I have some more time.
Okay, well, just I guess one of the last questions I'll ask is about like how you said that, you know, now you're studying curanderismo, right? So I guess what kind of made you feel like taking that, you know, going that extra step, and I guess for those that don't know exactly what curanderismo is, if you just want to give a little breakdown.
Sure. Curanderismo, curar means to heal, and curanderismo is traditional Mexican folk healing. And so as a practitioner, there are many different ways that one offers that. There might be somebody who does massage. There might be somebody who works with herbs. There might be somebody who's just a counselor. There's people who are bone setters. There are parteras, people who do birth. There's like so many different things. And so I feel like that's already what I was doing and didn't have that line. I feel like I've had different teachers who didn't necessarily call themselves maestra, but they worked with the ancestral medicine and gifted me things along my path. And so like I got my first somerio, which was, or poposhkomi, a fire vessel. And I was working with that. These things came to me. I was gifted a broom, which brooms are used to like cleanse energy and sweep before you do ceremonies. I was gifted like a lot of water vessels, and gifted like rain sticks and different items. And so I felt like this was what I was doing. But again, although it's my medicina, my ancestors let me know, I still wanted to have an elder who's like, I see you, because it's not practiced in my immediate family. My abuelita, my great abuelita on my father's side, she would do readings, and she would do like light velas for people and do prayers. And on my mother's side, my abuelita, she would do like different protection spells for herself. And they would go and get limpias from my mom and my tias before they go to Mexico, like protection, a lot of protection. They do a lot of protection, limpias, and like just work on them. And so I feel like that was what was calling. The medicine was calling, and I'm the only one in my family who walks this way. Although they all are walking a good way, you know, it's just maybe not connected to that or have a name for it, but have traces in it. And so I was connecting with the plants first. We were connecting with each other, how to make medicine through different places like Hood Herbalism, which I like to shout out them. It's a wonderful place for BIPOC community to be able to reconnect and remember and work with our plants, because some of us don't have those connections. Some of us are brought up in these ways, and that's so beautiful to, like, you know, learn how to plant the corn, learn, you know, about the herbs. Like, oh, don't worry, my grandmother, you know, she knows how to cleanse me, you know. Or we grew up with huevos, we grew up, you know, in different, you know, different cleansing the plants. And it's interesting because even my Nino, he'll be like, hey, can't you clean yourself with like an olive branch and just throw it like that? And I'm like, I just laugh because there's so many different ways, but now they ask me these questions. And so I joined, it's funny because years ago I had wrote like on a post or something like I'm a curandera, or I'm gonna be a curandera like my grandmothers before me or something. But I didn't really, you know, I didn't know what that was gonna look like. And I never called myself that because I I don't feel like, I don't call myself a healer, you know, although that's what's being done, because when you see people melt before you and the love that they have for themselves, when they can have a safe space to have it reflected back to them in a very warm and nurturing ways, that's very healing, and it's very, very medicinal, and very beautiful to experience. And so I felt like I wanted to reach out to this elder, because I fucked with her. Like, I was sad because I had my hoops I was about to throw on, and, you know, like, just really being myself and seeing that I can be who I am. And one of them broke, so I was sad. But, you know, like, she used to rock. I'd like to just send my deepest gratitude to Maestra Cuatli Siwat, and her ancestors, the direct legacy of Casia Mara Rocha y Sanchez, and her ancestors from the Tezcatlipoca tradition of the Red Path and Eagle Clan. That's the medicine that I'm learning and walking with now. My maestra had passed in December of last year, and so we're still reading her teachings and learning. And in the short time I was able to spend with her, it was very powerful, because many of us are, you know, just wanting to make sure what we're doing is good work. And that's what I wanted to make sure. I wanted to know from somebody who has walked this path their entire life, longer than my whole life. And because she had walked her path from her abuelita, and learning it from 9 years old, doing limpias on people. And so, like, for her to offer me the opportunity to share my work, that nobody was like, oh, I'm a ceremonial hairstylist. You know, I used to call myself like an intuitive spiritual hairstylist. So I didn't know what I was doing, but it was like, oh, I offer ceremony. And it looks different for every person. But I wanted to make sure I wasn't like, you know, I'm not appropriating, even though it's my ancestral way. But if I don't understand it and know it, you can appropriate it, because you don't understand how to respect it in a good way and more involved. If your heart feels like it's a way, but it's a very fine line. So I reached out to her, and when I had nobody else in my family to tell me that, you know. So for her to tell me that I was doing it and she was proud of me, nothing she had ever seen before, I felt like it was just something so special for me to experience, and to continue to grow, and to learn these ways, and to honor them, and to keep them alive for myself. First, for me, do my healing later day, and feel more open to experience my children, to my nieces and my nephews, my parents, to my ancestors, as I elevate them, and for all the generations to come. And then to my community, everybody that I work on. And sometimes it's the community before it's our family, because some people, all we can do is pray, but there are people in our community who come to us specifically for those things. And then, you know, that sends a ripple effect to the universe, to the world, to the ethers, you know. And so, yeah, I just wanted to learn those ways so I can keep them alive. That's why Curanderismo.
Thank you.
Ometeo.
And I know how Ometeo. And I'm sorry to hear of your maestra's passing as well.
Thank you.
Condolences. And
Thank you.
you know, right now I was breaking up a little, but I didn't want to interrupt you, because I don't know if you noticed, but because I loved what you were saying. But hopefully the audio came out good. It wasn't too bad. I don't know if did you notice it or
a little bit, but I wasn't sure.
Okay. But nonetheless, thank you for sharing that. That was really you know, I was really moved by it. It was really deep. So that's why I didn't want to interrupt you. I was like, oh man, I wanted to make sure they could hear what you're saying, because I thought it was very important. But you know, hopefully it was good.
Yeah, hopefully. If not, we'll just have to do it again.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Most definitely. I feel like I kept you longer than we're planning, but of course, you know, things happen like they're supposed to. So
yes.
So thank you so much. I'll leave all your information in the description for anyone that wants to. You know, for me, I think everyone should. You know, like me, obviously, I don't have hair, but if I did, I would have. You know, I would definitely go to experience. You know, it sounds like a very healing experience especially to get your hair done or cut by someone that has those intentions, right? So.
Yeah, I just want to add, I know we keep like, I want to add, that's how our conversations are in general. But yeah, even people who don't have hair, right? Because it's about the space. So it's laying of the hands. It's like, you do it to yourself. When's the last time you touched your own head when you're just placing intention and love? Like, that's what we do to babies. Oh, look at you, so cute, right? But we do it to ourselves. And so even people who don't have hair, you can go in, and again, that just depends on where we feel safe. And that's why I teach the classes, because you can go get a shampoo. You're probably the best candidate to get a shampoo, because it's a massage. You have no hair, so it's like the shampoo is now, it creates slip. Now you can get into different places, as opposed to somebody who has full hair. It's still just enjoyable, but it's probably like my short hair clients, they get like, I could do all the tricks on them. Long hair, this will get stuck, right? And so the other way, I can do all the other things. So, yeah, also a head massage, right? You have to be careful of different things. If you're epileptic, those are different things and contraindications you should worry about or think about. Not worry, but to take into consideration. But yeah, maybe you ask your barber, not tell, but be like, hey, do you ever offer warm towels? Or, your stylist, do you ever offer a little bit longer shampoos? I'd like to see what that feels like, But then also for the clients and not stylists, if you're ever feeling like, hey, I like the way they cut, but they're kind of rough, or I don't really like how I feel when I get my, how I come. I like the cut, but it just, something doesn't feel that right. You have to ask yourself what is better, the cut or the stylist, and finding somewhere where how you feel really good, and then hopefully merging the two. I'm glad or I feel like I cut good hair really well as provide that service. So the goal is to have them both. Yeah. So anyways, yes.
No, thank you. Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure in the future we could talk about other things. Me and you have very deep spiritual conversations. This one, I guess I wanted it because, like I said, it's so unique to me, where I've never seen anyone but you that I know personally do hair in that way. So I wanted to talk about it, like that's what I want to provide this space for, this podcast and even this channel, just to talk about all things spiritual, really, and without judgment. So I want people to be able to speak about it openly, because, like we know it's been suppressed for so long. And it almost seems like it's going in that direction again, where people aren't able to speak openly. I know it's kind of like, the pendulum swang one way, now it's swinging the other way, but it keeps going too far, where I think people should be able to speak freely. You don't always like what someone has to say, but I'd rather hear that than someone's silence completely. Sometimes it's like, I guess kind of a pick your battles kind of thing. But for me, I've always been like, I could not pay attention to somebody that is probably saying too many negative things. I could just tune them out, but when you're just silencing someone's voice, it's only a matter of time before they silence your voice too on the other end. You know what I mean? So that's why, while we have an opportunity, I want to provide this space to be able to have this conversation. So, hopefully, you can come on again and we'll talk about other things,
Sure.
Get deeper with it, like as far as like, spiritual things. And just thank you once again for coming on. Like I said, I'll leave your information in the description. And
wonderful. Thank you, Omar. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Peace.
Peace.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, sometimes you're just feeling it, you know what I'm saying? You're just feeling it. And I want to feel this way forever.